Good afternoon, ICB bookkeepers and students. This is the first in our new series of student success webinars. What we want to do is get you motivated. We want to get those burning questions answered. And today we are talking to Chrissy Aplin MICB. She's a full member of the Institute, and she is also the winner of last year's Luca Award for Student of the Year. So she did very well in her studies, and she's now gone on to set up her own bookkeeping business. So she's got lots of tips, I'm sure, and best practice information that she is going to share with you. And so if you've got any questions, please use the Q&A function that's selectable from the toolbar at the bottom of the screen. And then you can ask any questions, and if we miss any out, we will answer them after the event in emails. We'll also make a copy of this webinar available to all of you, so you can watch it again and again if you so wish. So let's begin. Chrissy Aplin, very nice to see you this afternoon. Can you tell us a little bit about what you were doing? And there was a big change in your life, and it set you off on your path to becoming an ICB bookkeeper. Can you bring us back to the start of that journey?
Yeah, absolutely. So my background is in corporate banking. So I worked in banking for 19 years across RBS and then Barclays. Enjoyed my job. I loved what I did. I was dealing with a lot of analysis of accounts, writing credit reports, and I loved what I did, but I didn't like the long hours. Go back to 2011, I had some health issues, and it made me reassess life and my work-life balance. And when the opportunity came up to take voluntary redundancy in 2016, I thought about it long and hard, but I decided to take it. And at that point, I was just going to take 6-9 months off, enjoy life. At that time, I thought that I would go back to a corporate style job and didn't anticipate doing anything different. My husband's actually run his own business since 2013, so he's been self-employed for a long time, but for me, it just didn't seem like that was something that I'd want to do. Took the time out and then thought, actually, I don't want to go back to working 60-hour weeks. I don't want to go back to those long hours and the stress that goes with it. So I thought, well, what else can I do? And bookkeeping in some ways seemed a natural choice for me, given I'm used to analysing financials, given I've got the background in that side of things and used to dealing with businesses. And so I thought, well, why not try this? So I enrolled in March 2017. And that was my motivation for getting through the exams and getting through them quickly, because I didn't want to go back to the corporate style life. So I had the intention that I wanted to get to the end and I wanted to set up my own business. And here I am today. So yeah, go back 2 years, I would never have imagined myself doing this. But now I would never imagine going back to anything else, because I love what I do. I love my clients. I love my day-to-day job. Obviously, there's ups and downs, as there always are with any job, but I love what I do and I'm in control of what I do, and that's brilliant.
Wow, there we go. How wonderful. Can you tell us who you studied your course with?
So my main studying with Training Link. So I studied levels 2, 3, 4, payroll and self-assessment with them. And they're a big reason for me winning the Student of the Year, you know, their support. But yeah, I know there's other good providers out there. And as we were saying before we came on sort of went live, it's about having the support from the other people, whoever you're studying with. It's about having that other student support wherever they may be, whoever they may be studying with. It's about having that support. And that's a big thing with distance learning, is you don't have that person stood in front of you teaching, you don't have that person sat next to you who's learning at the same time as you. So actually, I think this is brilliant, and the Facebook group is brilliant, because it's bringing people together so that you've got that support, even though it's on a virtual platform rather than face-to-face. And when just sidetracking slightly, when I went into bookkeeping, I was really worried to start off with that I would be lonely, that I'd feel quite isolated as a bookkeeper working on my own, but actually it couldn't be further from the truth. I've met so many lovely people through the training provider, through other bookkeepers that I've got to meet either in person or spoken to or email with, and other business owners. And it's not lonely at all. And there's so much support out there, which I think is fantastic, and I think it says a lot for being a bookkeeper, is there is a lot of support out there, and everyone's willing to help each other, which is brilliant.
That's such a lovely message, because I think that's something we really want to make very clear, is that, you know, it's very difficult to do anything alone, isn't it, really? And there's a huge support network out there. So we will be doing more webinars like this. And you mentioned also the Facebook group. We've now launched a student-specific Facebook group, so you can ask all those questions, because no doubt if you've got a question, you are not the only person who's ever had that question. If you're stuck on something, you're not going to be the only one, and there's lots of students out there, including Chrissy, who are going to help you and share a little bit of advice with you and things like that. So loads of resources out there, very strong community for the bookkeepers. Also, one thing, you know, obviously it's isolating to do distance learning, but also there's no set structure or timetable. You know, at least when you're at school, you sort of start in September and you finish it in summer. How did you structure that for yourself and keep yourself motivated?
So for me, I very much set up, I want to get to the end of this topic or chapter in a certain time period. Obviously, I had the luxury that I wasn't working at the time I was studying, so I didn't have that commitment. I know a lot of people study alongside a full-time job or a part-time job, but I was lucky that I didn't have that. So I set myself goals of, I want to get to the end of that assignment or chapter or whatever by X date, and I would set time in my day to do that. And obviously, again, everyone's different times of the day, people, you know, work better. So I, you know, for me it's the morning, so I would set time in the morning to study, and you know, I was very, I suppose because I had my end goal of what I wanted to achieve and the timescales I wanted to achieve that in, from a financial perspective, I was very structured and stuck to my study plan because of that. But yeah, for me, I'd say try and set aside time without distractions. Oh, there
we go. I'm back.
I couldn't hear you. Sorry.
When you were doing the course, obviously you had a banking background. Do you think, were there elements of the course that you think are sort of particularly challenging, or did you just sort of did you have to put as much time into each section of the course?
Yeah, I mean, the things I found particularly hard, especially to start off with, is the debits and credits and getting those around the right way. And I think a lot of people struggle with that. And I had to have notes to write down to, that is the way it goes, because I would instantly think that it was the other way around. And I think it takes a while to train your brain that that's the way it is. But yeah, and other things like depreciation, you know, when you've got onto the taxes, so I mean, self-assessment tax I found very difficult as a module, and payroll as well. I found those quite challenging, just because there's a lot of information to take on board, there's a lot to learn, and it was something that I totally different to anything I'd done before. So and I think the way it's taught is really good, because obviously you do, especially with payroll, you do the manual side of it. Obviously nowadays, you know, you can go on and you can use software that will do it for you, a lot of it, but actually to have that understanding is brilliant, and to do the manual side of it first. But there is a lot to take on board.
And why did you decide to do this? Because obviously a lot of bookkeepers may not touch a tax return or may not do payroll.
For me, I wanted to, I suppose I just wanted to have such a variety of services to offer. At that time, I didn't know, did I want to specialise in anything? And I know some people specialise in either a sector or you know, a particular service, and they do really well at that. Whereas for me, I wanted that variety. I wanted to know how everything worked, to then be able to work out actually what do I want. And payroll isn't really for me. I do a couple of payrolls, but to be honest, it's not really for me. And that's fine. I've got the qualification, but I don't actively promote myself as a payroll provider because I don't enjoy it as much. But I think that's the important thing. And I know we're going to come on to the business side of it. That's the important thing, is about finding out what works for you, and everyone's different. And it's about setting your business and, you know, doing the qualifications that work for you to provide the service you want to do, you want to offer. So I think what's right for one person isn't right for another, and that's fine. And it's about just remembering you are an individual. And in bookkeeping, you know, there are so many bookkeepers out there, but one of the things I've found is that people will buy you for you. and what you offer. So actually you could have two bookkeepers stood next to each other, and actually they'll be very different, both in personality but also in what they offer, the services and everything else. And that's what I think is great about bookkeeping, is you can make it personal to you, into what you want to offer. But no, I did all the qualifications just because I thought that was a good place to be. And actually I went on to do the FRS 105 afterwards as well, which I found has been very good. I've got a lot of clients through that, and it's something that I enjoy doing, that sort of side of it, so that's good.
Wow, fantastic. So that's final accounts for micro entities. That's a new financial reporting standard that essentially enables bookkeepers to be a one-stop shop for small businesses, small micro businesses.
Absolutely.
And, you know, over 97% of businesses in this country are small and micro businesses. So, and actually that's one thing that really distinguishes the ICB bookkeeper, because the other bodies like the AAT and ACCA and ICAW do not teach FRS, UK GAAP as standard. They're teaching international reporting standards, which obviously is great if you want to be an international bookkeeper or accountant, or if you want to work with businesses that are on the stock exchange. But for the majority of businesses, it's not necessarily what they need. So that's great to hear that you're getting business through your FRS 105 qualification, because that's very exciting. Also with that qualification, you can, that's what ultimately will get you into fellowship.
Right, okay.
One of those qualifications.
Okay.
There's a sort of suite of them, and you can select which ones you want to do depending on your needs. So, yeah, talk to us about the qualifications. So some of the exams are home-based, aren't they? And some of them are centre-based. How was that sort of experience for you?
Okay, so the home-based ones, to start off with, any exam, well, my experience, any exam is terrifying, especially when you haven't sat an exam for 20 odd years. It's terrifying to sit an exam. And even when you know you're at home, you're in the comfort of your home, you've got it's still no easier. But the home-based ones, I mean, my advice to everyone on the call would be always do the ICB mocks. The ICB mocks prepare you for the actual exam so much. And I know the different training providers have their own version of mocks and different things, but which are great to do, and they're great practice, but actually do the ICB mock. And I did them for, I think, every one of mine, and I did not regret it at all, because it sets you up for the actual exam.
Fantastic. Laura is agreeing with you here. Mocks are a godsend.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think actually I didn't take it for the very first exam, and I regretted it, just because I wasn't at that time, I didn't really know, but actually, you know, I would always take them now. But when I was at home, it's very much, I think the time you've got for the exam, especially for the first ones, can be quite pressurized. The other thing I found was you can read questions wrong. We've all done that. And that's why I think the mocks are important, because I made stupid mistakes in my mock exams. But that's, in my opinion, that's the best way to learn. You make the mistake there, you learn from it, and you won't get it wrong again. So the other thing I found really helpful is study cards. So I've got mine here. I've looked mine out. I've still got them. Study cards for me were a lifesaver. So I use study cards, both for some of the home exams and then for the centre exams. So for things like self-assessment and payroll, I use study cards, because the key information, you know, whether the national insurance thresholds, the tax thresholds, maternity pay, sick leave, all of those things, that there's so much to remember. Actually having it on a set of study cards, which are just easy to have to hand when you're doing assignments, whether you're doing assessments, is brilliant. So I found study cards really, really helpful to remember those key bits of information. And for the centre-based exams, they were brilliant, because obviously you have to learn everything off by heart. So they were my way of, I'd take them everywhere with me, and I'd have 2 minutes spare at any time of the day, and I would just read through them, and I'd get my husband to test me several times a day, so I'm sure he learnt them as much as I did. But it's just that repetitive, and it's easy to have them on study cards, because actually you've got that short note that you can just remember those key bits of information. when it is too much to take in. When you've got a book that, you know, is like that, it's easier, obviously, when you can summarize it down to your own notes and to your own abbreviations. So that was really helpful, I found.
Jason says, do you have a copy of the study cards? How did you actually did you make them as you were going along the course for the first time?
Yes, so I made them as I was going through the study material. So anything that I thought actually that might be a good thing. So I mean, this one here has got about, let's have a look, the purchase day book, and revenue expenditure and capital expenditure, and the difference between.
Can you hold it up to the screen? Do you think? Hold it up to the camera.
I don't know if you'll be able to read it. It's
very colourful
notes.
Lots of text.
But it's that was my way of learning. And again, everyone's different, but that was my way of learning, was having the note cards. Because then, especially for the centre-based exams, I'd start with ones like that, and then I'd end up gradually, as I learnt them, I'd get rid of them or put them to one side. So I would just keep the ones that I needed to learn still. So actually, I found, you know, that for me worked. So it may not work for everyone, but that for me worked. And actually, I still refer back to them sometimes now for the odd things like the payroll.
Debits and credits.
Debits and credits, but you've got them there. So, you know, they're good. And someone's just put their highlighting sections helps too, which, absolutely is. I think with all of these things, you obviously get the big study books and you obviously go through them and do the assignments and the assessments, but actually, it's what works for you in picking out the key information that actually you're going to need for the exam, and also for when you're doing it day to day in real life. Someone else no, exactly. Someone else has put there, can you take notes into a centre exam? No, you can't. Also, I've seen you've answered that now, but unfortunately not. But that was my way of learning. And the other way I learned was by just practicing again and again. So the activities and assessments in the study books, I just went over them again and again. And I would do them without my notes. So I knew that I could answer the questions without my notes. And just repetition. I think is a lot of it, just practice and repetition.
That's wonderful. What can you tell us about the exam centre experience itself? Because you can do, I think it's 3 exams or something, without having ever gone into a centre, and then suddenly, wow, not only do you have to find a building, you also have to sign in, bring some ID and all that kind of business. Was it as bad as it sounds?
The first time I did it, I was very nervous because, as you say, you don't know quite what to expect. But actually, it's not as bad as that. And you know, when you're sat there with your computer in front of you, you can take a calculator with you, not a scientific one, but a basic calculator, and they give you the equivalent of paper, so it's actually wipeable sheets that they give you that you can write on.
For notes.
So my advice would be ask for more if you need them. I asked for more in one of mine and they looked shocked, but they did give me them, because at the end of the day you need to write as much, you know, you're doing your workings on them, so you need to be able to write as much as you can. So if you need more, ask for it if you're someone who writes a lot of notes.
So Sue Bruland here said she struggled with the whiteboards. So yes, it is a bit of getting used to, but maybe that's because you think you've got to keep wiping it out and starting again.
Yeah, I didn't wipe any of mine. I just used one and I kept them, so I just had them there. So that the big thing for me, again, for the exam centre ones, is read the question and read it again and read it again. If you think at home, when I did the home-based exams, I used to get to the point of reading the question out loud, because for me that was a way, you know, when you read something in your head, you read what you think it says rather than what it actually says, whereas actually if you read out loud you might you might find that you've missed a word or something. So at home I'd read the questions out loud, whereas in the centre obviously you can't do that, but read it and read it again and read it again. Even if you think you know what it says, read it again, because things do, you know, a not in a sentence can make a big difference to what the answer is. So
that's completely true, isn't it? I've got a couple of questions on the Q&A actually. Maybe we should just cover this quickly. Natasha has asked, if you get to the end of the core modules, can you then decide to do some of the optional ones like payroll? There's drafting financial statements, there's FRS 105, there's management accounts, which is all that kind of like cash flow kind of strategy stuff that I think clients are crying out for now. You can absolutely add those on whenever you like. And I think actually some of the entry requirements are changing, which means that you can take those at any stage in your journey if you want to. So that they're just becoming more and more accessible, really. But yeah, you don't have to decide at the beginning what you want to do. Like Chrissy, you can come back and do, add one on when and if you think it's necessary. And then somebody else has asked, did you find doing the courses quickly helped to retain the information easier? I did the payroll in 4 weeks. This is no fuss payroll asking this. They did rather the payroll in 4 weeks alongside their job, and found doing it fast and making time really helpful. What do you think? Can you, should you take your time?
I mean, I think again, it's what works for everyone. And a big thing, like when I was saying earlier about setting time aside to study, I think the other thing you have to be honest with yourself about is if there is time that actually you don't feel you can do it, whether that's health reasons or whatever, that you don't beat yourself up. And I think it's important to get that balance right. And that's where it comes down to what is right for every person, and what's right for one person isn't right for another person. We all have commitments, and we all have stresses in our own lives that means you can't do things perhaps as you would like to do them. But I think you just have to be fair to yourself, and you have to realize what you can do, and don't beat yourself up. Really don't, because and again, that's the same with things that if you can't get something to start off with, I know depreciation gets a lot of people. If you can't understand it, start off with, don't give up. Don't be too hard on yourself. Everyone's been there. So many people have had issues understanding it. Just keep going with practice. Ask the questions if you need help, and you will get there. You will get there.
Fantastic. Just to reiterate, Chrissy trained with Training Link, but then you went on and did one of your optional modules with Ideal Schools, both accredited training providers with ICB, very long-standing and very, very successful, wonderful organisations. Was it just FRS 105 you did with Ideal Schools? Yes,
yeah.
I'll just write that down as well. FRS 105. Oh, wow. Hi, Laura. Laura, it's so great when you suddenly get that hallelujah moment, when something that stumped you for a while suddenly sinks in and you figure it out.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think with these, you practice and practice and you will get there. It will suddenly come to you. And that's not a bad thing. I think sometimes the things that you struggle over, the things that take you the time to understand, are the things you retain better in the long run. So
I can say I'm a very good driver since I failed my test 3 times. I'd like to think it's helped.
Likewise, I failed twice, so it's practice. So
did you actually fail any of your ICB exams at any point?
I didn't. No.
Right,
but
there we go.
but obviously, and I think part of that was taking the mocks. That is a big part of it. And I think if I hadn't taken the ICB mocks for some of them, I perhaps wouldn't have got that, especially whereas it's self-assessment where the pass mark is 90% off the top of my head. It's quite high. But taking the ICB mocks, not just for the practice, but also just for knowing how the exam's set out and what to expect, it's key, in my opinion.
Can I just quickly ask, Jason, what is that you've just posted? Are they mussels or something? Oysters or something? Oysters, that's what they look like. So yeah, Jason, can you please just tell us what they're as we go forward? So maybe this is a good moment to ask Helen's question. She's on the Q&A, saying, I'd really like to know how the additional modules you mentioned, like drafting financial statements, would actually be beneficial in self-employment, and what additional services can you offer with those additional models? Well, drafting financial statements specifically is about doing your drafting up a sort of set of final accounts for your clients, isn't it? Do you find yourself doing things like that, Chrissy, in your business?
Yeah, so with the, obviously I've only done the FRS 105 at the moment. I want to go on to do some of the others, but the FRS 105, yeah, absolutely. It's about preparing the final accounts for micro entities and the corporation tax return that goes alongside that. And I think drafting financial statements is a similar thing that, as you say, builds into the year-end accounts. So for me, it expanded my services, and I think where not that many people have done the FRS 105, it does make you stand out for that. And in my opinion, bookkeepers' fees aren't as expensive as accountants' fees. So especially where you get startup limited companies, they want something. So they're, you know, I mean, I think I've got 8 or 9 micro entity clients where I just do the year-end accounts. And I think there is demand for that. So in my opinion, it just expands your services. And anything that does that means you can take on more clients or a different variety of clients.
So maybe it's a good time to find out more about your business. You said there are 9 of these clients. I mean, how big is your business now? And when did you set it up?
So I set my business up in September last year. I'm now up to
nearly a year.
Nearly the anniversary. So I think I'm up to 21 clients now, a real mix.
Wow.
So I've got some self-assessment, I've got some say the FRS. I've got 8 or 9 of the FRS micro entities, and then I've got some where I do the bookkeeping. I've got some who just call on me when they get stuck. They do the bank reconciliation and everything in the software themselves, and they just call on me when they get stuck. I've just taken on a couple of new clients where I'm doing the monthly bookkeeping for them. So yeah, it's quite a variety, and actually I like that. I like having a wide variety of clients. For me, I didn't want to specialize in a sector. I wanted to make it open, and you know, I enjoy working with the self-employed person who, you know, goes off. I mean, he works full-time and he does his self-employed business in his spare time, to the limited companies. You know, I find that variety enjoyable.
Where are you finding these clients? Ask two Sues, Sue Bruland and Sue Rose.
So a variety. So a big one for me has been networking. So that's either face-to-face networking or online networking. So I've attended quite a few networking groups locally. I was actually surprised when I set up how many groups there are, certainly in this area in Hampshire, but also online with LinkedIn, with Twitter, with Facebook networking groups. There's quite a few of those out there. Actually, my first client I got through a Facebook networking group. You know, once a week they had a thing of advertise your business. I did that and then got a phone call to say, actually, we're looking for a bookkeeper. And I went to meet them and went from there. So
that's quick. And are these face-to-face meetings, or can you do it all online?
So that one I went to obviously meet in person after the online introduction, but obviously they wouldn't have known about me without that online introduction, or with the online advertising, as it were. So yeah, networking's been a big thing for me, which I know some people do find the idea of or don't like doing, which is fair enough. Again, it's what suits everyone. It is terrifying going into a room of people if you don't know them. You know, you can't get over that. But I think the thing to remember is everyone in that room has felt like that at some point. And for me, networking is very much not about the hard sell of who you are and what you do, but it's about building relationships. It's about getting to know people, and building those connections. So when I go to a face-to-face networking group, I'll get to know people, and then I will connect with them on LinkedIn. You know, take their business card and connect with them on LinkedIn, so I can keep up that sort of contact with them. And with these people, I don't think, in my opinion, it doesn't need to be the hard sell. You don't need to be in there, and people don't want that. But you never know when they may need a bookkeeper, when they may know someone who needs a bookkeeper. And if you've got to know them, they may then recommend you. And I think that's the way I approach networking is very much to get to know people. And I've met some lovely people through doing that. And it's more about that for me. It's about spreading, I suppose it's building my brand, getting people to know me, and who I am.
I love the sound of that approach. I know that Claire Packham, one of our fellows, once said to me, people, and I've heard it repeated, people don't buy businesses, people buy people.
Yeah.
And you know, and then it makes it easier, because how many bookkeepers have got a sales background? And when you're, you know, when you're trying to sell yourself, then that's difficult. But actually, if your agenda is slightly different, and like you say, you know, everyone may need a bookkeeper, or may know someone who needs a bookkeeper, because every business has books.
Yes.
And it's not that straightforward.
Yeah, exactly. And I found a lot of the face-to-face groups have Facebook groups that go alongside them. So actually you'll go and meet people face to face, but then you keep up that contact. And one thing I've found that's worked really well on LinkedIn and Twitter is engaging with people on there, not being on there posting about my business constantly. Is I post blogs, writing it, making tax digital, or about business expenses, about things that are useful, and I share things, articles and links to other things. So I follow HMRC on Twitter and LinkedIn, and I will share some of their posts or things like that, just so people see that you're being informative rather than just being, I'm a bookkeeper, this is what I do, I'm not interested in what anyone else does. You're actually engaging. And I found that through liking and commenting on others' posts, you actually get more people engaging with you because they see that you're trying to support them. So actually they want to do the same. So I find that works quite well on all social media, is if you engage rather than be the hard sell. I do find that works well.
And be your authentic self. You don't have to be anything different.
Definitely. And as you said a minute ago, people by people. And that is so true. And I think that's partly why in bookkeeping I think everyone is so supportive, because everyone is different and everyone's business is different, as we said before. So I know I said to you the other day when we spoke, I've got to know a bookkeeper who lives a couple of miles away from me. Got to know her really well. We're good friends now, and we will go to networking events together, and when we're stood there, people will say, well, you're bookkeepers, are you both from the same practice? And we sort of, well, no, I guess we are competitors, but actually we don't see it that way, because clients will go with her for who she is and what she offers, and clients will go with me for what I am. So I think that's very important, is, as you said, being authentic, being who you are, and not trying to be something else.
And absolutely take advantage of the strong network that we have at ICB. So there's lots and lots of local branches. If you call us up, we can tell you all about your local branch, or you can find it out on the website. But that's very good no matter what stage of the journey you're at. I don't know how many of you have been there. Laura is saying there's so much support in the bookkeeping world. It's not cutthroat, nor does it ever have to be. There is plenty of business out there, and it's only, I think that amount of business is only going to increase. But I've heard it from lots of members that say they go to local meetings, and even if they're studying, they get great advice, but also if they're running a business, they actually can get clients from other bookkeepers. So someone says, well, I've got a hairdresser and I don't really do hairdressers accounts, so does anybody want this great new client? So it's a great way to share all sorts of things, really, and just realize that you're not alone. But you can do that as a student, you can do that as a member, and that value in your membership should, in theory, it should be with you your whole life, hopefully. So Jason, we'll send, what we'll do after the webinar, I will send an email out, and I will give you some links to some of the bookkeeping support, including the new Facebook page just for students, so you can post all of your embarrassing questions about debits and credits in the new Facebook page. And let's can you tell me a little bit? Well, sorry, Chris, you've got something to say.
All I was just going to say is, you were saying about the branch meetings, the other thing that I would highly recommend is the conference, and I know they've gone for this year, but the Inspire Tours, I think it's a great way to not only get to meet fellow bookkeepers or fellow students, but actually it's a great way. I went to the conference last year, and when I sort of booked on it, I wasn't quite sure what to expect, but it's a great way to get to see, the software providers, to get to see the add-ons and learn about things like that. When I came into bookkeeping, I'd heard of Sage and I'd heard of QuickBooks and things, but I didn't really know much about them, and I certainly hadn't heard of Receipt Bank or Auto Entry or things like that. So actually the conference and places like that is a great place to go to be able to learn more about those things that could help you in your day-to-day business that you may not get a chance to unless you spend a lot of time researching. So I would definitely recommend attending those if you can.
Yes, please come to the Bookkeeper Summit. It's on the 26th and 27th of November. It's at a beautiful hotel in Heathrow. And so for the first year running, we're doing it at a hotel, following popular demand that said, actually, I always have to sort out my own hotel anyway. So can you do it for me? So we've got good packages. You can't buy the tickets yet, but you can sign up for pre-release information. But as Chrissy says, what we do, there's an exhibition which is essentially this sort of marketplace full of the biggest brands in bookkeeping, so Sage, QuickBooks, Xero, and all those add-ons, Receipt Bank, Auto Entry. And it's such a great way to just find out exactly what is great about those products and which ones you should be using, have little demos. But we also do big keynote presentations, quite often from the same sort of industry lights, I suppose. Sage will talk to us and say, well, this is what we think the future of bookkeeping is, and this is how we're developing our software around you, because all of these software companies love bookkeepers, because you're the ones that are out there using the software on a day-to-day basis. So you're very different from your kind of archetypal accountant who sees a client once a year and doesn't even really use the software. They get a lot of useful information about where to put their, where that product should be going from the Bookkeeper Summit and events like that. So it's very important that you go there and you sort of contribute to the voice of the bookkeeping community if you're available. So somebody did just ask, yes, so the summit is on the 26th and 27th of November. You can come for both days, you can come for one. There will be slightly different events happening, but also there are dedicated workshops. And this year we're bringing back the student revision workshops. So we always used to do it. It was Jackie and Leslie who would do big training workshops. And for some reason we stopped doing them. I don't know why, but we're bringing them back. What it means is that we're going to do a kind of revision of most of the core qualifications. And the great thing is that it gives you that opportunity to finally have a sort of classroom experience. And just by seeing somebody explain it in a slightly different way, on a whiteboard explaining, I don't want to say it one more time, debits and credits, it can really help to just get that information further into your brain and also help you understand things. So somebody mentioned earlier something that they're finding very confusing. Level 2 bookkeeping. It says, I'm struggling and I feel like I'm missing information. So it might be a great thing to go to. But also I would say, Jason said he was having problems with the NEC training provider not being available over the summer. Again, it's maybe something you could post in the FB, the Facebook student group, and see if somebody else can give you just a bit of information. And, I always think if you get somebody else to explain it to you, like, then you can get the hallelujah moment that Laura was talking about. So yeah, I'll totally send you information about that. But yeah, I'm super psyched about the workshops personally. Suddenly I realized, why did we stop doing that? They were so useful. But we're also doing workshops on money laundering regulations, MTD, and I think it's just going to be great. And I'm hoping Chrissy will be there.
Yep, I'm aiming to be.
I will certainly be there. It's actually the 9th year that we've done the summit, and I've been every year apart from last year, so I've missed it, basically. So Caitlin says, back to the training. Caitlin wants to know, how long did it take you to complete level 3? Do you remember?
I don't remember. I mean, I started in the March and I did my BA7, so that's at the end of level 3. I think I did it in June. But yeah, I really can't remember. I know BA4 takes a long time. BA4 took a long time, and then I sped through BA5 and 6 quite quickly, because I think from memory, partnerships and charity, not-for-profit organisations. And then I did have to wait, I think both times I had to wait 2 or 3 weeks for when booking the centre exams, because I couldn't get in any sooner than that. But yeah, I can't remember, but say level 2 and 3 I did in sort of the 3 months. So yeah, it seems a long time ago now.
Because now you're a successful businesswoman. So Laura's finding the BA6 tricky.
I struggled with BA6, not for profit. From memory, I think that's not for profit. I was going to say that. I think because some of the things changed name, whereas up till then everything was quite constant, whereas in the not-for-profit things changed name, and that really threw me, and I really struggled to get my head around. I can't think off the top of my head what it is, but there's one thing that almost switches sides, and it took me a long time to get my head around that, a long time. And I think the tutor was kind of getting a bit with me, because I just could not get it.
Helen
agrees. I got there in the end, so yeah.
I was just going to say that we do actually, our head of qualifications, Jackie Mount, has run a couple of technical articles in the newsletter on not-for-profits, and she did a webinar last month about not-for-profits. I'll send a link to that as well in the
That would be
email.
helpful.
Oh, Caitlin, you're only 17.
Wow.
We've got students and members of all ages. I would say that actually our average age for a student and member is 38.
Wow.
But 17, we've got lots of 17-year-olds as well. What tips can you give Caitlin for her level 3?
I mean, for me, it's the same as, for me, the study cards are a big part, especially because level 3, you are building towards that BA7 exam, which is the centre exam. So I think when I did it, I didn't really realise the significance of that at the time, but actually looking back now, I think right from doing BA4, write those notes, write those key things that you think might come into use in the exam, write those down right from the start, because actually you will start pulling together that set of notes that actually will become your revision notes when you come to that BA7. So that for me is a big part. But yeah, I don't think anything specific for for level 3. That say all the stuff that I've said, just practice and practice. That's the big thing, to reinforce the learning. Even if you've done an assignment once or an assessment once, do it again.
Do it again. And then, so, at what point, sorry, could you just explain again, at what point did you decide to go back to study and do your FRS 105? Because Amarnath is, wondering why you chose Ideal Schools, and Sue wants to know if it was a distraction at all, because were you already working by that point?
I was already working, but I hadn't got many clients at that point. So I kind of took advantage of a slow point and to sort of get that. And I also thought, so when I first started out, I got my first client, but I did struggle to get the next ones to start off with, and it was quite a roller coaster of a ride. I would go for interviews and someone more qualified with more experience, sorry, not more qualified, with more experience would get it. And it was frustrating because I know a lot of people on the Facebook groups have felt like this, is how are you meant to get experience unless you get that chance? So I felt it was very frustrating, and it just, instead of moping around and thinking, well, this isn't going to work, I just tried to focus on the study and thinking, well, actually, if I can get that study, actually, and I already knew a couple of limited companies by then that would pretty much would have come with me if I'd have got that qualification. So it was kind of an incentive to get it. But no, it was hard, and it is hard when you're working, and that's why I'd like to do like the drafting financial statements and things. But when you're working, it is very hard to fit it in alongside. It's
Your busy day. So can you talk to me a little bit about how, so you set up your business in September, you now have over 20 clients. How do you organise your day? Because at the one hand, you're trying to find new business, but you've got to keep the business you've got. How do you do that, as well as studying at the same time, perhaps?
It is a juggle, and I think being very organised. So some of my clients, where they're just year end, whether that's self-assessment year end or financial year ends, the work isn't time pressured as much. But so that helps. But I just think being very organised. So I try and just split my week up. I mean, I've got a couple of clients at the moment where I travel to them, and actually I'm in the process at the moment of almost changing the shape of my business a little bit. So some of those clients who I took on where I'm traveling to them, actually I'm spending a lot of time traveling, and I'm trying to not work there so much and work more from home. So actually now I've got my sort of core client base, I'm actually in an advantage where I can do that, and that's really good, because actually I can shape my business a bit more to what I want it to be. So I think at the start it's very much, and I think I went on the ICB Business Builder last year, and it's about your ideal client, and that's great. But I think
that's a sort of masterclass course, isn't it? Where you go into a venue and get trained.
Yeah, so it's a one day course, on setting up business. It talks about marketing, about your ideal client, about some of the practical sides of it. But I think for me, it was kind of, when you start out, it's almost any client will do to start off with. And you haven't got that luxury or a lot of people don't have that luxury, because you need to get your business up and running, you need that experience. And I think as you go on, you can then perhaps shape it a bit more to what you want it to be, and think about actually the people you want to work with. And I mean, I had one of my clients that was a terrible payer. I mean, they kept me waiting months for money, and I don't work with them anymore. And I can make that decision because I don't need their business, because I've got other clients. But it is hard to start off with, because you know, you have to start somewhere.
You're kind of desperate, aren't you?
Yeah, you are. Yeah.
And that's amazing that you've come to that point already within that first year of trading. And what about charging? How do you figure out how much you want to get paid?
That is the difficult one. And I think it's, again, where a lot of people struggle. I know there are a lot of views on pricing out there about how you should structure pricing. I've gone with what feels right for me. I don't know if it is right. I don't know if others would agree, but I know what other bookkeepers locally to me are charging, and I've set my rate in line with that. And I try and be flexible with the client as to what they want. Do they want, if I'm doing a year end, do they want to pay a one-off fee once a year? Do they want to spread that throughout and do it 12 months, so they don't, obviously from a cash flow perspective, have to find that money once a year? You know, I do fixed fees for things like self-assessment, so that fee will vary depending on how many transactions, the size of the business, whether they use accounting software or whether they use spreadsheets or literally a box of receipts, which obviously I've got a bag on my floor somewhere with a bag of receipts where that's what they do. So I think it's the pricing is such a difficult area, but the way I looked at it was I worked out how many hours I wanted to work, I worked out what I wanted to earn a month, and I kind of worked it back from that as well, just as to what are my expenses on an ongoing basis. But again, with the shape in my business, the last few quotes I've done, I've upped my prices, because I'm in the place where actually I've got the core client base, so actually I feel I can do that now. And actually most clients that I've gone out to with pricing have chosen to go with me. So I think it's very difficult to sort of know your worth, isn't it? Especially when you're new to an industry, but you have to go with what's right for you. And there are a lot of people, so there's the one other advice I was going to get, I've written their names down. There's some key people who I think are great to follow on things like Twitter. One of them being Mark Wickersham, who does the cloud pricing, and I know he has Facebook groups as well, and he does a lot of webinars. And the other one is I've got to find her name, sorry, it's Amanda Watts. She does a lot on the marketing for accountants and bookkeepers. So I think people like that are great people to follow, because one, a lot of them do free ebooks and things, so you've got access to that information, but actually it's a great way to interact with other people in that sort of industry and get support, which is great. So I know the cloud pricing works for some people.
So Mark Wickersham is a Bookkeeper Summit speaker. He was one of the keynote speakers a couple of years ago. But he talks about value pricing, this idea that you price for what they get rather than set hourly rates. But I love that approach, Chrissy, that essentially what you did, you looked at how much you wanted to work, how much money you wanted to get for it. Because especially if you're going to be in business all by yourself, do it. Remember, craft that work-life balance around yourself, your family, your other commitments. And there's a lot of bookkeepers who aren't even doing this as their main job, potentially. Do this
exactly
in your motorbiking website.
No, absolutely. And I know with jobs you sort of go to and you think, well, how long is that going to take me? And sometimes you have to just estimate, and sometimes you might be over, sometimes you might be under. It's a difficult thing, and even with experience, I think that doesn't get much easier. It's one of those things. What a job that you think will be really easy might not turn out to be. A job that you feel might be really difficult actually might turn out to be a lot easier than you thought. So I was working with someone the other day, they do the bookkeeping themselves, but they just wanted me to have a look over QuickBooks because they've got some discrepancies in there. And to start off with, I thought, it would be really simple, but actually there's loads of things that it's like, well, why have you put that in as a check? It's a credit, and little things that actually you know, and I'm charging on an hourly rate, so I'm going through it line by line and, you know, telling them where they've got it wrong. But actually things like that I thought off the space, I thought it'd be quite simple, isn't. So yeah, and I think that's where you can get support from the bookkeeper Facebook groups as well on things like that, you know, not necessarily on the pricing as such, but thing I find is that if you've got a problem in bookkeeping, someone will always have had that problem before, and no question is a stupid question. You know, we've all been there. We've all learned the hard way. So, you know, ask the questions and use the support that's out there, definitely.
So you just mentioned QuickBooks, didn't you? Caroline has asked, what software packages do you use? Do you use just one, or and do some of your clients? Do you use your client software package, or is it yours and they use whatever you're using? How do you work that out?
Yeah, so for me, I mainly use QuickBooks. So with QuickBooks, when you do their training and become a pro advisor, they do offers on licenses, so you can buy QuickBooks licenses at a reduced rate, and as part of that you can then on-sell them for whatever you essentially want to on-sell them for. So I use QuickBooks, and I use QuickBooks for a lot of my clients, but having said that, I've got one who's on Xero, and that's fine, and I'm also accredited on Free Agent. But for me, I think it's very much about see what's out there, and like with the conference and things like that, go and see the demos. These people, as you said a minute ago, Amy, they want your business, so they will give you demos. They will talk you through their systems, and a lot of them do, you know, the training. Some of it you pay for, some of it you don't. It's very much per provider, but see what's out there, try it, and a lot of them have demo companies. So I think it's Xero, when you go on and do their partner training, you have access to a demo company, which essentially means you can set up the company and you can try all the different bits. You can think, oh, what does that button do, or what does that do, and you can try it and you can see how something works rather than doing it on a client's accounts or something. So they are very supportive. But yeah, I think doing as much of the accreditation, again, it's one of those things that some people specialize in one or two, some people work across the board, and that's fine. It's whatever works for that person. The thing I found good about QuickBooks is I think it was called a Silver Pro Advisor, which I took on 5 licenses for £5 a month, so £1 each a month. Did the training, which was free, and then I got money back for marketing. So I use that for my ICB business cards, and I think for my logo design. And you get access to their accountants directory. So I have got quite a few leads through there. So you're on their accountants directory. So someone local to you might think, right, I had someone the other day, he's just set up QuickBooks. He was struggling with some things. So he looks on the accountants directory, contacted me because I was close to him. And, you know, it's a new client that I've taken on. And through the QuickBooks, or I'm sure the others do the similar, but you can get clients to review you. So I got a client to review me earlier in the year. Since they reviewed me, I've got more clients or more leads through there. So I think all of these things, they're there to help you. So and again, on the Facebook, you know, if you want any help on things like that, then please ask, because there is a lot of information out there. There's a lot of providers out there, and if you're not sure what's right or what you should be doing, then ask, because there's always people out there who, you know, who've been there and learned. So
fantastic. And as you say, yeah, the conference, the Bookkeepers Summit, is a great place to get all of that information in one place. Definitely. And ask the questions that you want to ask, really. But there's lots coming on the ICB website, because at the moment what we do, we ask members to review software packages. Then you know exactly they're looking for the same features that you're going to want as well. So we do review a lot of the packages. We're kind of working through them slowly, but we are developing that section of the website so it's a little bit easier to use. So there is lots of information on the site as well about different software packages. I think probably to wrap up, because now it's coming up to 3 p.m. sadly, I wonder if you could just talk to us a little, just kind of briefly tell us what it is about bookkeeping that you love, and what is it that you're giving your clients that means that they stay with you, you increase your fees at the end of the year. What is bookkeeping about, really?
Well, for me, I mean, I've always been a numbers person. Right back to when I was in school, I love maths. I've always been a numbers person. So for me, that's a natural thing. But the thing I love about bookkeeping is having a problem. So like this person I was talking about with QuickBooks coming to me saying, right, it doesn't balance. What's the thing? And having a problem like that and being able to look at it and being able to solve it, and that for me is really rewarding. But also being able to advise people on, people get scared or get nervous when talking about HMRC. Businesses, they obviously want to get it right with HMRC and they're worried that they won't. So I've got one client, he's actually a South African and he's a lovely guy, and he keeps coming to me, he's like, right, well, I've got this company, I've done this, have I registered for the right taxes, and have I done the right tax? And he just wants that reassurance that yes, he's registered for his corporation tax right, he's registered for his self-assessment tax for him personally, and he forgets, when do I have to do that return by, or when do I have to do that by? So it's just, a lot of it's almost the reassurance, and being able to guide them to the right things. So someone wants to register for VAT, being able to support them in that, or the VAT thresholds, or making tax digital. That's obviously a big thing coming up, where you can help people who perhaps don't understand that side of it, or don't understand what they need to do. You can be supporting them and giving that advice. And I think that's the great thing about businesses when they outsource something. It's finding someone you can work with who can do the things that you either don't enjoy doing or aren't able to do because you're not qualified to. And I think that's the great thing about working with all these businesses is, everyone's got their strengths, and that's where we can come in as bookkeepers. But yeah, I think that's why I enjoy it so much. I love that, and I love working closely with people. I love getting to know new people. I've heard some horror stories from some of the clients I've taken on where they've had issues with people in the past, and you want to be able to give them that reassurance and help them in those areas.
I love it. Bookkeepers solving problems and helping businesses around the world.
Absolutely. And just very quickly, I think, and I know Gary Carter goes on about this a lot, is how much weight there is to being an ICB bookkeeper. For me, I'm so proud to be an ICB bookkeeper and what that represents. And I think there's more awareness now of people being qualified. Anyone can call themselves a bookkeeper, but actually to have qualifications and to be an ICB bookkeeper means a lot. And I use that a lot in my promotion, whether it's on social media or whatever. I use that a lot in my promotion because there is a lot of weight to that. And so I know it's something that Gary speaks very highly of. So yeah, I think don't be afraid to do that. Be proud to be an ICB bookkeeper.
Yeah, it's a good way to distinguish yourself, isn't it? And Jason,
yeah,
all the signs are pointing to the fact that MTD, Making Tax Digital, is going to mean more business for bookkeepers, and we'll certainly be covering that at the Bookkeepers Summit on the 26th and 27th of November. So just to wrap up, I want to say thank you so much, Chrissy, and thank you to all of our audience members, especially ones who've been saying stuff and asking questions. I hope we've covered pretty much everything, but we will follow up in an email. Whoop whoop, says Jason. And we're here to get you motivated, keep you inspired, and to help you on any stage of your journey to becoming a happy and fulfilled ICB bookkeeper. So just keep going. Let's do it together.
Yeah, and I said use that support that's around you. There is so much support around you, so use that and don't be afraid to ask questions. Definitely.
Brilliant. Okay, well, I hope everyone has a wonderful afternoon. Take care. Bye-bye.